behind me here, and it is indeed an abbey. It is not a cathedral, and it never has been. Now, the first abbey to be built on this site was built back in the early 600s. It was built by a king of England, a man named King Ethelred the Unready. Now, what he was unready for, I don't think anybody knows. But he didn't do too bad a job of building an abbey because it lasted right up until about the year 1000. However, by 1000, England and London in particular had been invaded by quite a number of different people, and they hadn't really been concentrating on keeping the abbey in good condition for quite some time. By the year 1000, it had fallen into ruin. Now, in 1050, a king of England, a man named King Edward the Confessor, came to the throne. And he had always vowed that if he managed to become king, he would make a pilgrimage to Rome. However, once he actually became king, he realised just how far away Rome really is from London. And he thought that possibly if he spent 2 years or more walking to Rome and back, that he might not still be king when he got back. So he did what every sensible king of England does. He sent a messenger instead. So the messenger made his over to Rome, said to the Pope, "Sorry, Edward couldn't make it, but I'm here instead. What would you like us to do?" And the Pope said, "Well, I want you to rebuild the Minster, or the Abbey, to the west of London." And that is exactly where we are now. We are to the west of the original city of London, which was more around where the Tower of London is today. But that's exactly what Edward did. He fulfilled the Pope's wishes and built the Abbey you can see behind me right now. All of this was built during his reign, apart from those 2 white towers on the end there, and the bit down the other end that looks like the House of Parliament. But this central section was completed whilst Edward was still alive. Now, he was so proud of his Abbey that he insisted on being buried here. And he did get pretty lucky, really, because it was only completed 10 days before he died. But he was indeed buried inside, and the next King of England, William I, otherwise known as William the Conqueror, was crowned here. Now, this started a bit of a tradition. We do like our traditions in this country. If we do something once, we're damn well going to carry on doing it like that. So, for the next 800 years, every single king or queen of England was both crowned and buried inside this abbey. Now, the tradition of burying them there ended in 1901 when Queen Victoria died. She had wanted to be buried next to her husband, Prince Albert, who had died 40 years before her. She had spent most of her life in mourning for him, I can't talk anymore, and she didn't want to be separated from him in death. So they are no longer buried here, they are still crowned here though, and also a lot of other people are buried inside Westminster Abbey. It's basically where the great and good of England tend to be buried. So, for example, Charles Darwin, the man who wrote The Theory of Evolution, he's buried inside the Abbey there. Also, Isaac Newton, the man who discovered gravity. Rudyard Kipling, the man who wrote The Jungle Book. And also, the only man in England ever to be buried standing up, a man named Ben Jonson. He was a poet here in London back in the 1600s. And he realised that every single writer who was ever buried in the Abbey was remembered as being really fantastic, really, really great. So he wanted to be buried there as well. Unfortunately, he wasn't very rich, and all he could afford was a ½ metre by a ½ metre square inside the Abbey. So when he died, the only way they could get his coffin in was by dropping it in feet first. So I guess you could say that ever since then he has been dead on his feet. Oh, come on, guys, it's not that bad. Okay, anyway, obviously I already told you that there's a law in the House of Parliament that says you're not allowed to die there. However, if it wasn't for that law, about 400 years ago, they were at risk of having a serious problem here, because about 400 years ago, in 1605, somebody tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament with everybody inside it. If it wasn't for that law, if they'd succeeded, they would have been working here day and night to get all those funerals done. Now, I promised you gruesome stories at the beginning of the tour, and I haven't really lived up to that so far, but all that is about to change. I am about to tell you the most gruesome story that this side of London has to offer, and we're going to head round to the site where some of it took place just down this way. So, let's go. Anybody who wants to